She's just extra baggage on this trip. Those words cut through me like a knife as I stood in the hotel lobby, pretending to admire the marble fountain while my daughter-in-law Rebecca whispered into her phone. Mom insisted we bring Daniel's mother along, but honestly, what are we supposed to do with her all week? It's not like she can keep up with our activities. A pause. At least she can watch the kids while Daniel and I get some actual vacation time. I clutched my small carry-on, bag tighter, 63 years old and reduced to an inconvenience. Little did Rebecca know that the elegant coastal resort where we were spending the next 7 days, with its private beach access, award-winning restaurants, and exclusive spa, wasn't just our accommodation. It was mine. Every palm tree, every cabana, every grain of imported white sand belonged to me, Patricia Lambert. But as I watched my son place his arm around his wife and kiss her cheek, I decided to keep that information to myself, at least for now. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I never intended to join Daniel and Rebecca's family vacation. For years, I'd maintained a careful distance from their marriage, visiting only when explicitly invited, bringing thoughtful but modest gifts for the grandchildren, and never offering unsolicited advice. After losing my husband Robert to cancer 8 years earlier, I'd built a quiet, independent life centered around my business ventures and close circle of friends. The invitation came during our monthly family dinner at their suburban home. "Mom," Daniel said, passing me a bowl of mashed potatoes, "we're taking the kids to Serenity Shores Resort for spring break. We thought you might want to join us." Rebecca's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "The grandkids would love having you there." Something in her tone suggested obligation rather than genuine desire, but I missed my grandchildren desperately. Between Daniel's demanding job and Rebecca's increasingly packed social calendar, my time with 10-year-old Emma and 7-year-old Jackson had dwindled to brief holiday appearances and the occasional Sunday afternoon. "That sounds lovely," I said cautiously. "But are you sure I wouldn't be intruding on family time?" "Don't be silly, Mom," Daniel insisted. "We've already looked at booking a 3-bedroom suite. There's plenty of room." Rebecca examined her manicure. "Besides, the kids can be a handful. Having another adult to help with them would make it more of a vacation for everyone." There it was, the real reason for my invitation. I wasn't family, to be enjoyed. I was additional childcare. Still, I accepted. After Robert died, I promised myself I'd never miss an opportunity to create memories with my family, no matter the circumstances. And perhaps, I thought hopefully, a week together might warm Rebecca's cool attitude toward me. I should have known better. From the moment we arrived at Serenity Shores, Rebecca's true feelings became increasingly apparent. She assessed my sensible travel outfit, linen pants and a light cardigan, with barely concealed disapproval, steered me toward the least appealing bedroom in our oceanfront suite, and accidentally excluded me from the dinner reservation she'd made for their first night. "Oh, Patricia, I'm so sorry," she said, not looking particularly apologetic. "I made these reservations months ago before we knew you'd be joining us. The restaurant is completely booked now. Perhaps room service would be more comfortable for you anyway? The children will be exhausted after traveling." Daniel, absorbed in a work email on his phone, barely registered the exchange. "That's a good idea, babe. Mom can get the kids settled while we have dinner." And just like that, before we'd even unpacked, I was relegated to babysitting duty while they enjoyed the resort's 5-star seafood restaurant. I tucked Emma and Jackson into bed that evening after ordering them pizza from room service. As I read them The Wizard of Oz for the 3rd time, their current favorite, Jackson looked at me solemnly. "Grandma, are you having fun on our vacation?" I smiled at him. "Of course I am, sweetheart. I get to spend time with you and Emma. But you're not doing any vacation things," Emma observed. "She's just extra baggage on this trip." Those words cut through me like a knife as I stood in the hotel lobby, pretending to admire the marble fountain while my daughter-in-law Rebecca whispered into her phone. Mom insisted we bring Daniel's mother along, but honestly, what are we supposed to do with her all week? It's not like she can keep up with our activities. A pause. At least she can watch the kids while Daniel and I get some actual vacation time. I clutched my small carry-on, bag tighter, 63 years old and reduced to an inconvenience. Little did Rebecca know that the elegant coastal resort where we were spending the next 7 days, with its private beach access, award-winning restaurants, and exclusive spa, wasn't just our accommodation. It was mine. Every palm tree, every cabana, every grain of imported white sand belonged to me, Patricia Lambert. But as I watched my son place his arm around his wife and kiss her cheek, I decided to keep that information to myself. At least for now. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I never intended to join Daniel and Rebecca's family vacation. For years, I'd maintained a careful distance from their marriage, visiting only when explicitly invited, bringing thoughtful but modest gifts for the grandchildren, and never offering unsolicited advice. After losing my husband Robert to cancer 8 years earlier, I'd built a quiet, independent life centered around my business ventures and close circle of friends. The invitation came during our monthly family dinner at their suburban home. "Mom," Daniel said, passing me a bowl of mashed potatoes, "we're taking the kids to Serenity Shores Resort for spring break. We thought you might want to join us." Rebecca's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "The grandkids would love having you there." Something in her tone suggested obligation rather than genuine desire, but I missed my grandchildren desperately. Between Daniel's demanding job and Rebecca's increasingly packed social calendar, my time with 10-year-old Emma and 7-year-old Jackson had dwindled to brief holiday appearances and the occasional Sunday afternoon. "That sounds lovely," I said cautiously. "But are you sure I wouldn't be intruding on family time?" "Don't be silly, Mom," Daniel insisted. "We've already looked at booking a 3-bedroom suite. There's plenty of room." Rebecca examined her manicure. "Besides, the kids can be a handful. Having another adult to help with them would make it more of a vacation for everyone." There it was, the real reason for my invitation. I wasn't family. To be enjoyed. I was additional childcare. Still, I accepted. After Robert died, I promised myself I'd never miss an opportunity to create memories with my family, no matter the circumstances. And perhaps, I thought hopefully, a week together might warm Rebecca's cool attitude toward me. I should have known. Better. Mom and Dad are going to restaurants and the beach and stuff, but you're just here with us. Out of the mouths of babes, I kissed their foreheads and turned out the light, sitting alone in the dark of their room for a long while afterward. When Daniel and Rebecca returned from dinner, flushed with expensive wine and laughter, they barely acknowledged me before retreating to their bedroom. I stood on the suite's balcony overlooking the moonlit ocean, the resort's landscape lighting, illuminating the swaying palms and tranquil pools below. From this vantage point, I could see the architectural elements I'd insisted on during construction. The curved infinity pool that followed the natural coastline, the hidden garden nooks, offering privacy among tropical blooms, the subtle lighting that enhanced rather than overwhelmed the natural beauty of the shoreline. Serenity Shores was my favorite of all the properties in the Lambert Luxury Resort Collection, the hospitality empire Robert and I had built together from a single rundown beachfront motel in the 1980s. After his death, I'd continued expanding the business, now with 12 exclusive destinations across the country. Yet here I stood, alone on a balcony of my own creation, an afterthought in my family's vacation. The morning brought no improvement. I woke early, as always, and prepared breakfast for everyone. Fresh fruit, scrambled eggs, and toast from the groceries I'd arranged to have delivered to our suite. "Mom, you didn't have to cook," Daniel said, helping himself to a generous portion. We could have gone to the buffet. I don't mind, I replied. I know how the children like their eggs. Rebecca emerged in yoga attire, her hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. Daniel, don't forget we have couples paddleboarding at 9. She poured herself a small glass of orange juice. Patricia, you don't mind watching the kids this morning, do you? The instructor doesn't allow children under 12. It wasn't a question. Actually, I said, making a split-second decision, I have an appointment this morning at the spa. Rebecca paused, glass halfway to her lips. You have an appointment? When did you arrange that? I called yesterday, I lied smoothly. I thought I deserved a little vacation time, too. Daniel looked up from his phone, suddenly paying attention. But what about the kids, Mom? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. We can't cancel the paddleboarding. It was impossible to book. I maintained a pleasant expression. Perhaps you could take them to the kids' club. I've heard it's excellent. The kids' club at Serenity Shores was, in fact, award-winning. I'd personally designed its programming to include marine biology exploration, culinary classes, and indigenous cultural activities rather than the standard video games and babysitting provided by most resorts. Rebecca's mouth tightened. The kids' club costs extra. We hadn't budgeted for that. I'd be happy to cover it, I offered, knowing full well that the club was complimentary for guests staying in premium suites like ours. No, that wouldn't be right, Daniel said predictably. He'd always been fiercely independent, refusing financial help even when he was struggling through medical school. We'll figure something out. Rebecca sighed dramatically. I suppose we could alternate. You go paddleboarding while I take them to the beach, then we'll switch. Perfect solution, I said brightly, gathering my sun hat and bag. I shouldn't be more than a couple of hours. As I closed the suite door behind me, I heard Rebecca's irritated whisper. This is exactly why I didn't want to bring her. So selfish. Instead of heading to the spa, I made my way to the resort's administrative offices, using my keycard to access the private elevator. My assistant Marina looked up in surprise as I entered. The moment we arrived at Serenity Shores, Rebecca's true feelings became increasingly apparent. She assessed my sensible travel outfit, linen pants and a light cardigan, with barely concealed disapproval, steered me toward the least appealing bedroom in our oceanfront suite, and, accidentally, excluded me from the dinner reservation she'd made for their first night. Oh, Patricia, I'm so sorry, she said, not looking particularly apologetic. I made these reservations months ago before we knew you'd be joining us. The restaurant is completely booked now. Perhaps room service would be more comfortable for you anyway? The children will be exhausted after traveling. Daniel, absorbed in a work email on his phone, barely registered the exchange. That's a good idea, babe. Mom can get the kids settled while we have dinner. And just like that, before we'd even unpacked, I was relegated to babysitting duty while they enjoyed the resort's 5-star seafood restaurant. I tucked Emma and Jackson into bed that evening after ordering them pizza from room service. As I read them The Wizard of Oz for the third time, their current favorite, Jackson looked at me solemnly. Grandma, are you having fun on our vacation? I smiled at him. Of course I am, sweetheart. I get to spend time with you and Emma. But you're not doing any vacation things, Emma observed. Mrs. Lambert, we weren't expecting you until next month's board meeting. Change of plans, Marina. I'm here with my family for the week. Her expression turned knowing. Ah, I see. And do they? No, I interrupted, and I'd like to keep it that way for now. Marina nodded, professional as always. Of course. How can I help you? I need you to do something rather unusual, I began, settling into the chair across from her desk. I want you to book me an actual spa appointment, retroactively. Make it look like I scheduled it yesterday. Marina typed quickly on her keyboard. Done. You had the Serenity signature package at 9:30 this morning. Perfect, I said, smiling at her efficiency. Now, I need you to free up my schedule for the rest of the week. Postpone the conference call with the investors and have James handle the vendor meetings. Already taken care of, Marina replied. I rescheduled everything when I saw your name on the guest list. I assumed you'd be taking time off with your family. I felt a pang of sadness. My assistant had automatically assumed I'd be spending time with my family, while my own family had automatically assumed I'd be spending time apart from them. There's one more thing, I said, my resolve strengthening. I'd like to plan a special day, something that will show them exactly who I am. Marina's eyes lit up. The full reveal? Are you sure? I'm sure, I confirmed. It's time they saw me, all of me. For the next hour, Marina and I plotted what would become the most dramatic day of my family vacation. We reserved the VIP cabana, arranged a private dolphin excursion, scheduled a special lunch on our exclusive island, and coordinated with the executive chef for a sunset dinner that would leave no doubt about my position at Serenity Shores. Before leaving the office, I made one final stop at our boutique. I wanted to bring back gifts, evidence of my fictional spa day and shopping excursion. The manager, Sophia, greeted me warmly. Mrs. Lambert, what a lovely surprise. How can I help you today? I need gifts for my grandchildren, something special they couldn't get anywhere else. Sophia guided me to a display of handcrafted toys made by local artisans. Wooden boats with sails made from indigenous fabrics and intricately detailed plush sea creatures filled with aromatic herbs that released a calming scent when hugged. These are perfect, I said, selecting a sailboat for Jackson and a sea turtle for Emma. And I'd like something for my son and daughter-in-law as well. For Daniel, I chose a leather-bound journal embossed with the coordinates of Serenity Shores. Subtle, but meaningful. For Rebecca, I deliberated longer before selecting a pair of handcrafted silver earrings with small blue topaz stones that matched her eyes. As Sophia wrapped my purchases, she asked casually, "Shall I charge these to your account?" Mrs. Lambert? No, I replied after a moment's consideration. I'll pay with my personal card. And Sophia, please process this as a normal transaction. No special treatment. She looked puzzled but nodded. Of course. I wanted the receipt to show exactly what any guest would pay. No owner's discount, no special consideration. When Rebecca inevitably examined the total, I wanted her to feel the full weight of my generosity, not suspecting any special arrangement. By the time I returned to the suite 3 hours later, I was prepared for the backlash. I found Rebecca, alone, furiously tapping on her tablet. "Where are Daniel and the children?" I asked, setting down the shopping bags. "Daniel took them to the pool," she said without looking up. "Since you were gone so long." I checked my watch. I apologize for the delay. The massage was so wonderful, I added a facial treatment. This was met with stony silence. "I bought some gifts for the children," I continued, removing colorful packages from the bags. "And something for you and Daniel as well." This finally captured her attention. "You didn't need to do that." "I wanted to," I said, presenting her with the small jewelry box. Rebecca examined the earrings with obvious surprise. "These are actually quite nice. Thank you." "The blue matches your eyes," I said sincerely. Something flickered across her face, discomfort perhaps, at receiving kindness she knew she didn't deserve. But the moment passed quickly. "I should tell you," she said, returning to her tablet. "We've made dinner reservations at Azura tonight. It's adults only, so we've arranged for the resort's babysitting service for the children." Azura was Serenity Shores' signature restaurant, perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. I'd named it after my favorite color in the sunset sky. That sounds wonderful, I replied. What time should I be ready? Rebecca's fingers stilled on the screen. We assumed you wouldn't mind staying with the children. The babysitting. Service is quite expensive. Of course they had. I see, I said, my voice carefully neutral. Well, perhaps another night. But there wouldn't be another night, as became clear over the next 2 days. Each morning brought a new schedule of activities from which I was excluded. A sunset catamaran cruise, adults only. A guided nature hike, too strenuous for someone my age. A beach picnic, canceled due to light rain, though I later saw them enjoying it from my balcony. I spent those days in a strange, dual existence. To my family, I was the convenient grandmother, available for childcare whenever needed. But each time they left me behind, I would take the children on secret adventures through the resort, to the kitchens where Edward taught them to make chocolate sculptures, to the maintenance areas where they could see how the massive aquariums were cleaned, to the design studio where my team was finalizing plans for the Maui property. "Why does everyone know you, Grandma?" Emma asked on our second day, after the third staff member had greeted me by name. "I've been coming here for a very long time," I explained, which was true enough. "But they call you Mrs. Lambert," Jackson observed. "Not just your first name, like they do with Mom and Dad." "That's because they respect me," I said, squeezing his hand. "And because I've earned it." The children accepted this explanation without question, but I could see them processing the inconsistency between how the staff treated me and how their parents did. Children notice these things, the subtle hierarchies, the unspoken tensions, the gap between what adults say and what they do. On the third evening, after being excluded from yet another dinner, I sat with Emma and Jackson watching a movie in the suite. Rebecca and Daniel had gone to a wine tasting event, promising to be back by 9, but texting at 8:30 to say they'd joined some couples they'd met for drinks afterward. "Grandma," Emma said during a quiet moment in the film, "why don't you ever come with us and Mom and Dad to the fun places?" Jackson nodded. "Yeah, they always say you're too tired or you don't like those things. But you're not tired, are you?" I looked at these perceptive children and made a decision. No, I'm not tired. And I like fun things very much. "Then, why don't you come?" Emma persisted. "Because sometimes grown-ups don't communicate very well," I said carefully. "But I think it's time that changed. How would you two like to help me plan a special surprise?" Their eyes lit up. "What kind of surprise?" "A very big one," I promised. "But first, let's finish our movie." After tucking the children into bed, I made several phone calls. The first was to Marina, confirming our plans for the following day. The second was to Edward, Serenity Shore's executive chef, requesting a special menu that would incorporate all of the children's favorites while still meeting Rebecca's exacting culinary standards. The third was to Thomas, the resort manager, ensuring that every detail of our day would be flawlessly executed. By the time Daniel and Rebecca returned shortly before midnight, I was sitting peacefully on the balcony with a glass of wine, gazing out at the ocean. "The kids go down okay?" Daniel asked, loosening his tie. "Perfect angels," I replied. "They're excited about tomorrow." Rebecca kicked off her heels. "Why? What's happening tomorrow?" "I've arranged a special day for all of us," I said. "A proper family day." Daniel looked uncomfortable. "Mom, we already have plans." "Cancel them," I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. "Trust me, this will be better." Rebecca opened her mouth to object, but something in my expression made her reconsider. "Fine," she said finally. "But the kids need to be in bed by 8. We have dinner reservations at La Mer." La Mer was the resort's newest restaurant, a French-inspired seafood establishment I'd opened just 6 months earlier. Its waiting list was currently 3 weeks long. No, you don't, I said pleasantly. Excuse me? You don't have reservations at La Mer tomorrow night, I clarified. I checked. Rebecca flushed. That's impossible. I made them months ago. No, you didn't, I said, still smiling. But don't worry, I've arranged something much better. I slept soundly that night, perhaps better than I had since arriving at the resort. There's a unique peace that comes with the decision to stop accommodating those who won't accommodate you, to stop diminishing yourself to make others comfortable with their limitations. The next morning, I woke before everyone else and ordered a lavish breakfast to be delivered precisely at 8 a.m., synchronized with Thomas's arrival. I dressed carefully in a linen shift dress with a tasteful sun hat, elegant but practical for a day at the beach. Emma and Jackson were the next to wake, bursting into my room with barely contained excitement. Is today the surprise day? Jackson whispered loudly. It is, I confirmed. Did you remember what we talked about? They nodded solemnly, taking their secret mission very seriously. Last night I'd given them specific instructions. Be ready by 8. Don't tell your parents anything about our plan, and act surprised when the manager arrives. At 7:55, I heard Daniel and Rebecca stirring. By 8, when the knock came at our door announcing breakfast delivery, the entire family was awake, though Rebecca was still in her robe, looking irritated at the early hour. Did you order room service? She asked accusingly as servers wheeled, in a table set with a sumptuous spread. I did, I replied. I thought we should start our special day with a proper meal. The children dug in enthusiastically, while Daniel helped himself to coffee and Rebecca picked suspiciously at a fruit plate. Precisely as we finished eating, another knock came at the door. Thomas stood there in his impeccable resort uniform, his posture formal, but his eyes twinkling with our shared secret. Good morning, he said formally. I'm here to escort the Lambert party to their private cabana. Rebecca, still in her robe, looked bewildered. There must be some mistake. We don't have a cabana reserved? Consider it my treat, I said, gathering my beach bag. Children, are you ready for our special day? Emma and Jackson, already dressed in their swimwear as I'd instructed, bounced with excitement. Mrs. Lambert, Thomas continued, your usual cabana has been prepared according to your specifications. Rebecca's expression shifted from confusion to suspicion. Your usual cabana? What does he mean? Shall we? I gestured toward the door, ignoring her question. Thomas led us through the resort grounds to the most exclusive section of the beach, where a large, luxurious cabana stood isolated on a small promontory. Unlike the standard cabanas dotting the main beach, this one featured a full dining area, plush lounge seating, a private plunge pool, and unobstructed ocean views. What the hell is going on? Rebecca whispered to Daniel as Thomas showed the children the cabinet stocked with beach toys, snorkeling equipment, and games. I have no idea, Daniel muttered back. Mrs. Lambert, will you be requiring anything else? Thomas asked. This is perfect, Thomas, I replied. Please thank Marina for arranging everything so quickly. As Thomas departed, Rebecca rounded on me. Okay, what is happening? Why is the manager treating you like royalty? How did you get this cabana? And who is Marina? I settled into one of the lounge chairs. Marina is my executive assistant. She's worked for me for 15 years. Your assistant? Daniel interrupted. Mom, you're retired. No, I corrected gently. I never said I was retired. You assumed that because it was convenient to think of me as having nothing more important to do than be available whenever you needed childcare. Rebecca's face flushed. I don't understand. Clearly, I agreed. Children, why don't you try out the plunge pool while I talk to your parents? Once Emma and Jackson were happily splashing, I turned back to Daniel and Rebecca. After your father died, I began, addressing Daniel, you were so concerned about me being alone that you never stopped to ask what I actually wanted. You decided I needed to be integrated into your family life, on your terms, of course. Occasional dinners, holiday gatherings, emergency babysitting. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Mom, that's not fair. Let me finish, I said firmly. The truth is, I was never just a housewife. Your father and I built Lambert Luxury Resorts together from nothing. When he died, I continued running the company. I currently serve as CEO and majority shareholder of a hospitality group that includes 12 properties across the country, including this one, Serenity Shores, my personal favorite and the flagship of our collection. The blood drained from Rebecca's face. You own this resort? I own all of it, I confirmed. Every restaurant you've been excluding me from, every activity you've deemed me too old or inconvenient to participate in, every staff member who's been serving you, they all ultimately report to me. Daniel looked stunned. Why didn't you ever tell us? Because it wasn't relevant to our relationship as family, I said. Or at least, it shouldn't have been. I wanted you to value me as your mother and the children's grandmother, not for my financial status or business achievements. So all this time, Rebecca began, her voice faint. All this time, you've been treating the owner of this resort like unwanted baggage, I confirmed. Excluding me from activities in my own establishment, using me as free childcare while you enjoyed the amenities I created. The weight of this revelation settled over them like a heavy blanket. Daniel looked as though he might be sick, while Rebecca's expression cycled rapidly between shock, embarrassment, and calculation. Mom, Daniel finally managed. I had no idea you were still so involved with Dad's business. It wasn't Dad's business, I corrected firmly. It was ours. We built it together, and I've expanded it since his death. This isn't some hobby I've been tinkering with, Daniel. It's a multi-million-dollar corporation that employs over 5,000 people across the country. Rebecca found her voice. But you never said anything. All those times we talked about our vacations, about coming here. You just listened and nodded. And you never asked, I pointed out. Not once did either of you express any interest in my life beyond how it intersected with yours. Did you ever wonder why I was only available for childcare on certain days? Or why I travel so frequently? Or why, despite being a supposedly retired widow, I maintain an office in the city and have a personal assistant? Daniel ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so reminiscent of his father that it made my heart ache. I assumed you were involved, in charity work or taking classes or, I don't know. Exactly. You didn't know because you didn't ask. Rebecca, ever practical, was already adjusting to the new reality. Does this mean we've been getting some kind of special treatment? Discounted rooms or upgrades because of your connection? I almost laughed at her ability to immediately focus on the potential benefits to herself. No, Rebecca. I've always insisted that my family be treated exactly like any other guests. No special rates, no preferential treatment. I wanted you to experience Serenity Shores as it truly is, not as a perk of being related to me. Then why reveal all? This now? She demanded. Why not just continue as we have been? Because I'm tired, I admitted. Not physically tired as you've been assuming all week. I'm tired of being diminished, tired of being valued only for the convenience I provide. Tired of watching my own son and his wife exclude me from experiences in a resort I created. Daniel reached for my hand. Mom, I'm so sorry. I never meant to make you feel that way. I squeezed his fingers briefly before withdrawing. I know. You didn't intend it, but intention doesn't change impact. The fact remains that in the 3 days we've been here, you've both consistently treated me as an afterthought, an accessory to be utilized when convenient and discarded when not. Rebecca stood abruptly. "I need a moment," she said, walking away along the shoreline. Daniel watched her go, conflict clear on his face. I touched his arm gently. "Go," I said. "Talk to your wife. This is a lot for both of you to process." As he jogged after Rebecca, I turned my attention to Emma and Jackson, who were gleefully splashing in the plunge pool, blissfully unaware of the seismic shift occurring in our family dynamic. "Grandma!" Emma called. "Come swim with us!" I slipped off my cover-up and joined them in the cool water, relishing their uncomplicated delight in my company. Children have a wonderful ability to value people simply for who they are, not what they provide or possess. It's an ability many adults lose along the way. From the corner of my eye, I could see Daniel and Rebecca in intense conversation at the water's edge. Rebecca's arms were crossed defensively at first, but gradually her posture softened. Daniel placed his hands on her shoulders, speaking earnestly. After several minutes, they began walking back toward our cabana, their expressions solemn but composed. As they approached, Emma called out, "Mom! Dad! Grandma can hold her breath underwater for so long." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Rebecca replied, her voice strained but making an effort. "Why don't you and Jackson get dried off now? I think some staff are bringing more food." Indeed, as the children reluctantly climbed out of the pool, Edward and his team approached the cabana with trays of elegant refreshments, tropical fruit skewers, fresh coconut water served in the shell, and small savory pastries filled with local seafood. "Mrs. Lambert," Edward said warmly, "everything is arranged according to your schedule. The boat will arrive at 11 for the private dolphin excursion, followed by lunch on Pearl Island. The children's marine biology class is set for 2 p.m. and the family portraits at sunset. Will there be anything else?" "This is perfect, Edward," I replied. "Thank you." As the staff departed, Rebecca stared at the lavish spread. "I don't understand. Why go through this charade? Why not just tell us who you were from the beginning?" I sighed, having anticipated this question. "Because I wanted to see how you would treat me when you thought I had nothing to offer beyond my presence. And now I know." Daniel winced. "Mom, that's not fair. This was a test we didn't know we were taking." "Life is a test we don't know we're taking, Daniel," I replied. "Our character is revealed in how we treat people when we think there's nothing to gain from them." Rebecca, to her credit, didn't attempt to defend the indefensible. "You're right," she said quietly. "We've been terrible to you, especially me. I've been treating you like an unpaid nanny, not family." Daniel nodded, looking genuinely ashamed. "I let it happen. I was so focused on having the perfect vacation that I didn't see how we were excluding you." "I'm not looking for apologies," I said. "I'm looking for change. Both of you have treated me as an accessory to your lives, convenient when you need help, invisible when you don't. That ends today." I gestured to the beautiful beach before us. "I built this place because I believe luxury isn't just about expensive things. It's about meaningful experiences shared with people you love. I've given you access to all of this, but the one thing you couldn't seem to do was include me in enjoying it with you." Rebecca had the grace to look ashamed. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything right now," I replied. "Just enjoy today with me and the children. Tomorrow we can talk about what our relationship looks like going forward." The tension eased slightly as the children rejoined us, excitedly describing the dolphins they hoped to see on our excursion. As we enjoyed Edward's exquisite refreshments, I observed Daniel and Rebecca carefully. Daniel seemed genuinely remorseful, frequently glancing at me with sorrowful eyes. Rebecca was harder to read, embarrassed certainly, but there was calculation in her expression too. as if she were reassessing me in light of this new information. At precisely 11 o'clock, a sleek motorboat pulled up to the small dock adjacent to our cabana. The captain, dressed in the resort's crisp uniform, waved us aboard. "Your private dolphin excursion awaits, Mrs. Lambert," he called. As we settled into the plush seats, Emma and Jackson vibrating with excitement, I caught Rebecca whispering to Daniel, "A private boat? Do you have any idea how much this must cost?" I pretended not to hear, but their ongoing fixation on the monetary value of things rather than the experience itself spoke volumes. They were missing the point entirely. As the boat pulled away from shore, gliding through the crystal-clear water, I made a silent promise to myself. Today would be the first day of a new chapter in our family relationship, one where I was fully seen and valued, or one where I stepped back and protected my own peace. The choice, ultimately, would be theirs. The day that followed was nothing short of magical. We spotted dozens of dolphins from our private charter boat, the majestic creatures swimming alongside us and leaping through our wake. The children shrieked with delight when the captain slowed the boat and invited them to slip into the water with special flotation devices, allowing them to swim, at a safe distance, near the curious dolphins. "Grandma, look!" Jackson called, pointing excitedly as a mother dolphin and her calf approached. "They're coming right to us." I joined him at the viewing platform, my heart full. They're beautiful, aren't they? Did you know that dolphins are one of the most intelligent animals on Earth? They recognize themselves in mirrors and even have names for each other. "Really?" he asked, eyes wide. "How do they name each other? If they can't talk?" "They use special whistles and clicks," I explained. "Each dolphin has its own signature sound, like a name. They can call to each other across great distances." Daniel, standing nearby, looked at me with surprise. "How do you know so much about dolphins, Mom?" "When we were designing Serenity." "Shores," I replied. "We wanted to ensure all our nature experiences were educational as well as entertaining. I worked closely with marine biologists to develop our dolphin programs in a way that's respectful to the animals and their habitat." "You designed all of this?" Rebecca asked, gesturing to the resort visible on the shoreline. "Every aspect," I confirmed. "From the architectural concept, to the experiential programming, to the sustainability initiatives. This resort was my vision from the beginning." For perhaps the first time, I saw genuine respect in Rebecca's eyes. Not for my role as grandmother or even for my wealth, but for my professional accomplishments, for the mind and determination that had created the luxury she had been enjoying. After our dolphin encounter, we docked at the resort's private island for lunch. A table had been set up on the beach under a canopy of palm trees, complete with cushioned chairs and a view of the turquoise lagoon. Edward had prepared a magnificent feast of local specialties: grilled fish with tropical salsa, coconut rice, roasted vegetables, and a selection of fresh fruit sorbets for dessert. As we enjoyed this impeccable meal in paradise, I observed a subtle shift in our family dynamic. Daniel was attentive, making sure my wine glass was filled and asking genuinely interested questions about the resort's history. Rebecca, though still somewhat reserved, was watching me with new eyes, absorbing details about my life and work she had never bothered to notice before. Most tellingly, when Edward approached to ensure everything was to our satisfaction, he addressed me directly. "Mrs. Lambert, is everything to your liking?" In the past, Daniel or Rebecca might have intercepted such a question, answering on behalf of the group. Today, they both looked to me expectantly, acknowledging my position at the head of the table, both literally and figuratively. "It's perfect, Edward," I replied. "You've outdone yourself as always." He beamed with pride. "Only the best for you and your family." As the afternoon progressed, we returned to the main resort for the children's marine biology class, an exclusive session I'd arranged with the resort's head naturalist. Emma and Jackson delighted in examining coral samples under microscopes and learning to identify different species of tropical fish in the resort's massive aquarium. By sunset, as a professional photographer captured our family portraits against the blazing orange sky, something had undeniably shifted. Daniel kept his arm around me, introducing me proudly to other guests as my mother, the founder of Serenity Shores. Emma and Jackson looked at me with newfound awe, peppering me with questions about my resort and Rebecca. Rebecca watched me with a complicated expression, part embarrassment, part respect, and perhaps a touch of fear about what this revelation meant for her place in the family. That evening, instead of the coveted reservation at La Mer, we dined at a table set up on the resort's private pier, illuminated by strings of lights and candles. The executive chef himself prepared each course tableside, explaining the local ingredients and techniques as the children watched in fascination. "Mrs. Lambert," one of the servers said as he refilled my water glass, "the revised contracts for the Maui property have arrived. Marina said she's left them in your suite for review when you have time." "Thank you, Anthony," I replied. "Please tell her I'll look at them tomorrow." After he departed, Rebecca leaned forward. "You're opening a resort in Maui?" "Yes," I confirmed. "It's been a challenging project. Environmental regulations are particularly strict there, as they should be. But we're committed to creating something that enhances rather than exploits the natural beauty." "That sounds incredible," she admitted. "It is," I agreed. "My work has always been incredible, Rebecca. You just never bothered to ask about it." As the evening wound down and the children grew sleepy, Daniel helped me to my feet. "Mom," he said quietly, "I can't believe how blind I've been. All these years, thinking I needed to worry about you being alone or having purpose after Dad died. You've built something amazing here." "Your father and I built it together," I corrected gently. "And yes, losing him was devastating. But I never lost my purpose. You just failed to see it." I expected this revelation to mark a turning point in our relationship, but life is rarely so simple. The next morning, I sensed a coolness that hadn't been there during our magical day. Daniel was quieter at breakfast, checking his phone more frequently than usual. Rebecca was polite but distant, her earlier vulnerability replaced by a careful formality. "Is everything all right?" I asked as we finished our meal on the suite's balcony. "Fine," Daniel replied too quickly. "Just some work emails I need to handle." Rebecca gave a tight smile. "We were thinking of taking the children to the water park today. Would you like to join us?" The invitation felt perfunctory, lacking the genuine warmth I'd glimpsed yesterday. Still, it was an invitation, something that wouldn't have happened earlier in our trip. "I'd love to," I said, "but I actually have some business to attend to this morning. Perhaps I could meet you." "For lunch?" Relief flickered across Rebecca's face so quickly I almost missed it. "That would be perfect." After they left, I sat alone with my coffee, contemplating the subtle shift. Human nature is complex. Revelations that appear transformative in the moment often struggle against the gravity of established patterns. The awareness that I was, the resort's owner had clearly impressed them, but it had also disrupted the familiar dynamic of our relationship. They didn't quite know how to interact with this new version of me, the powerful businesswoman who had been hiding in plain sight. I sighed and reached for my phone, calling Marina. "Good morning, Mrs. Lambert. How are things going with your family?" "Complicated," I replied. "Yesterday was eye-opening for them, but today, I think they need time to process." "That's to be expected," Marina said wisely. "People don't always know how to react when their preconceptions are challenged." "You're right," I agreed. "In the meantime, I'd like to see the quarterly projections for Maui. Can you have them sent to my suite?" "Already done," she replied. "They should be waiting for you now." I spent the morning reviewing reports and participating in a conference call with our investors, grateful for the distraction of work. Just before noon, I changed into a casual sundress and headed to the beachfront restaurant where we'd agreed to meet for lunch. I spotted Daniel first, standing at the hostess station looking uncharacteristically uncertain. When he saw me approaching, his expression shifted to one I couldn't quite read, somewhere between embarrassment and apprehension. "There you are," he said. "Rebecca took the kids to wash up. They've been in the water all morning." "Did they enjoy the water park?" "They loved it," he replied, then hesitated. "Listen, Mom, I've been wanting to talk to you." Before he could continue, Rebecca appeared with Emma and Jackson, both children flushed with excitement. "Grandma," Jackson exclaimed, "I went down the big slide 6 times. And I swam with the stingrays," Emma added proudly. "The guide said I was a natural." Their enthusiasm was contagious, and for a moment, the awkwardness dissipated. We were seated at a table overlooking the ocean, and throughout lunch, the children dominated the conversation with tales of their aquatic adventures. Daniel and Rebecca spoke mainly to them, engaging with me only peripherally. As dessert arrived, Rebecca cleared her throat. "Patricia, we've been thinking. We really appreciate everything you've done for us, especially yesterday. But we feel a bit overwhelmed." Daniel nodded, looking relieved that she had broached the subject. "It's a lot to take in, Mom. Finding out you're not just our mother and grandmother, but essentially our boss? Patron? I don't even know what to call it." "I'm the same person I've always been," I pointed out. "Nothing has changed except your awareness." "But that changes everything," Rebecca insisted. Together, as equals. "But we're not equals," Daniel said, his voice low so the children wouldn't hear. "You own the place. That creates an imbalance, whether you acknowledge it or not." I hadn't anticipated this reaction, that my revelation would create more distance rather than bridging it. In trying to be seen fully, I had inadvertently erected a new barrier. "I understand this is difficult to process," I said carefully. "Perhaps we should take a step back. You continue your vacation as planned, and I'll give you some space." Rebecca looked both relieved and guilty. "That might be best. Just for today so we can adjust." I nodded, masking my disappointment. "Of course. I have meetings this afternoon anyway. Enjoy your day, and we'll regroup for dinner." Children looked confused by this sudden shift in mood, but before they could question it, Rebecca distracted them with promises of ice cream and more pool time. As I walked away, Emma called after me. "Grandma, wait!" I turned to see her running toward me, her small face serious beneath her still damp hair. "Are you sad?" she asked directly. Children can be remarkably perceptive when adults are trying to hide their emotions. I knelt to her level. "A little," I admitted. "Sometimes grown-ups need time to figure things out." She nodded solemnly. "Mom and Dad are acting weird because you own the hotel, right?" "Resort," I corrected automatically, then smiled. "Yes, I think they're surprised and don't quite know how to react." "That's silly," she declared with the clear-eyed logic of a 10-year-old. "You're still the same grandma. You just have a cool job." I hugged her, grateful for her uncomplicated acceptance. "That's exactly right. Now go enjoy your ice cream. I'll see you all for dinner." Instead of returning to my office, I found myself walking along the shoreline, needing time to process my own emotions. The tide was low, revealing tide pools teeming with small marine life. I stopped to watch a tiny hermit crab navigating its rocky world, carrying its borrowed home on its back. "Quite the metaphor, isn't it?" a voice said behind me. I turned to find Thomas, my resort manager, maintaining a respectful distance. We all carry our homes with us in some way, he continued. Our histories, our identities. And sometimes those homes no longer fit, I replied, watching the crab struggle with its slightly too small shell. Thomas nodded. I couldn't help noticing some tension at lunch. Is everything all right with your family, Mrs. Lambert? In the decades we'd worked together, Thomas had become more than an employee. He was a confidant, someone who had witnessed my journey through widowhood and the expansion of the business. They're adjusting to seeing me differently, I explained. Finding out I own the resort has complicated things. People often struggle when they're forced to recalibrate their understanding of someone close to them, he observed, especially when it disrupts their place in the perceived hierarchy. That's exactly it, I said, surprised by his insight. Daniel used the word equals. He feels we can't be equals when I own everything around us. Thomas smiled thoughtfully. Perhaps what he's really struggling with is the realization that you've always been more than he allowed himself to see. That's not about hierarchy. It's about recognition. His words resonated deeply. The issue wasn't that I had suddenly changed. It was that their limited perception of me had been forcibly expanded. They were grappling not just with who I was, but with their own failure to see me completely. Thank you, Thomas, I said sincerely. You've given me something to think about. That's what 20 years of working for a remarkable woman teaches you, he replied with a respectful nod before continuing his walk along the beach. I returned to my suite, finding it empty and quiet, a stark contrast to the family chaos of previous days. The freedom should have felt refreshing, but instead, it highlighted what was missing. I had revealed my true self, hoping for closer connection, not greater distance. After catching up on some work, I changed for dinner, choosing a simple but elegant dress that represented both aspects of myself, the businesswoman and the grandmother. When I arrived at the restaurant, I found my family already seated, the children animatedly describing their afternoon adventures while Daniel and Rebecca listened with strained smiles. Emma spotted me first, waving enthusiastically. Grandma, come sit by me. I saved you a seat. As I approached, I noticed Daniel and Rebecca exchange a look, not hostile, but uncertain. The careful dance of recalibration was beginning. I hope you all had a wonderful afternoon, I said, taking the seat beside Emma. It was awesome, Jackson declared. We went to the water park again, and I rode the big slide 7 times. We missed you, though, Emma added pointedly, looking between her parents. Rebecca had the grace to look slightly abashed. We thought you might appreciate some time to yourself, especially with your busy schedule. I appreciate the consideration, I replied neutrally. But I'm on vacation too. Being with family is my priority. Daniel cleared his throat. Mom, about earlier. We've been talking and I think we owe you an apology. Our reaction wasn't fair. No, it wasn't, I agreed, surprising them with my directness. But it was human. Finding out someone isn't who you thought they were is disorienting, even when the revelation isn't negative. But that's just it, Daniel said, leaning forward. You are who we thought you were, our mother and grandmother. You're just more than that, too. Much more, Rebecca added, with what seemed like genuine admiration. And I think that's what threw us off balance. We had to confront how narrowly we've been seeing you all these years. Their self-awareness was encouraging, but I knew better than to expect immediate transformation. Understanding intellectually that one has been limited in their perception doesn't automatically expand that perception. I appreciate your honesty, I said. Perhaps we can use this opportunity to get to know each other more fully. All of us. The tension eased slightly as our meal progressed. The children's natural exuberance created a buffer, filling silences with tales of water slides and beach discoveries. Gradually, Daniel and Rebecca relaxed, asking tentative questions about the resort's operations and my role in its development. "I still can't believe you designed all of this," Rebecca marveled, gesturing at our surroundings. "The attention to detail is extraordinary." "Not just me," I corrected. "I had a vision, but it takes hundreds of talented people to bring something like this to life." "That's leadership," Daniel observed. "Knowing how to channel others' talents toward a unified vision." I studied my son, recognizing a newfound respect in his gaze. "Yes, it is. Something your father understood intuitively, and that I had to learn." "Will you tell us about that?" he asked. "About the early days, when you and Dad were just starting out?" His genuine interest touched me. "I'd like that." As dessert arrived, I found myself sharing stories I'd kept tucked away for years. How Robert and I had discovered this property when it was nothing but an aging motel on a neglected stretch of beach. How we'd mortgaged everything we owned to make the purchase. How local officials had scoffed at our plans for a luxury resort in an area known primarily for budget accommodations. Everyone told us we were making a catastrophic mistake, I recalled, smiling at the memory. But your father had this remarkable ability to see possibility where others saw problems. He would stand on this very shoreline, pointing to the horizon, and describe exactly what Serenity Shores would become. "And you made it happen," Rebecca said softly. "We made it happen," I corrected. "Together. That was the strength of our partnership. Robert was the dreamer, I was the pragmatist. He'd envision something magnificent, and I'd figure out how to make it feasible without compromising his vision." Daniel's expression grew reflective. "I remember Dad standing on the beach with blueprints, but I never realized. I thought he was just taking me along on business trips. I didn't understand I was witnessing the creation of something significant." "You were very young," I said gently, "and children naturally see their parents primarily in relation to themselves. It's only as we mature that we recognize our parents as complete individuals with identities beyond parenthood. Some of us take longer than others to reach that maturity," he acknowledged ruefully. As we finished our meal, Emma tugged at my sleeve. "Grandma, can we see your office tomorrow? I want to see where you work when you're here." I glanced at Daniel and Rebecca, not wanting to overstep if they were still processing. To my surprise, Rebecca nodded encouragingly. "I'd love to see it too," she admitted. "If that's all right?" "Of course," I agreed, feeling a cautious hope. "Perhaps we could all go together in the morning." As we walked back to our suite under the stars, Daniel fell into step beside me, the children running ahead with Rebecca. "I'm sorry we reacted poorly earlier," he said quietly. "It was a shock, but that's not an excuse." "You don't need to apologize again," I assured him. "I understand it was unexpected." "No, I need to say this," he insisted. "I've been thinking about why it bothered me so much to discover you own this place. It wasn't just surprise, it was shame." "Shame?" I echoed, genuinely confused. "For not knowing something so fundamental about my own mother," he explained. "For treating you as one-dimensional for so long. For all the times I've explained things to you that you probably knew far better than I did." His self-awareness touched me. "Daniel, you were seeing me as you needed to see me, as your mother. That's natural." "But not complete," he countered. "And that's what I need to work on, seeing you completely, not just the parts that relate to me." Back at the suite, after the children were tucked into bed, Daniel opened a bottle of wine, and the three of us settled on the balcony. The moon cast a silver path across the ocean, creating a moment of tranquil beauty that seemed to ease our collective tension. "I've been thinking," Rebecca said after her first sip, "about why I was so thrown off by learning about your ownership of the resort." "And?" I prompted gently. "I think," she began hesitantly, "I think I've been resentful of you for a long time, Patricia. Not because of anything you've done, but because of what you represent. Daniel looked surprised, but Rebecca continued. You've managed to maintain your own identity, your career, your passion, while still being present for your family. That's something I've struggled with since the children were born. She twisted her wedding ring nervously. I gave up my career in event planning when Daniel's residency required us to move, and I've never quite found my footing again professionally. Her vulnerability was unexpected but deeply moving. I understand that feeling, I told her. When Daniel was young and the business was just starting, I constantly questioned whether I was shortchanging him by pursuing my own ambitions. But you weren't, Daniel interjected. I never felt neglected. Perhaps not, I acknowledged, but the fear was real. The difference is, I had Robert, a partner who genuinely believed my professional fulfillment made me a better mother, not a less dedicated one. Rebecca glanced at Daniel, who had the grace to look slightly abashed. I haven't always been as supportive as I could be, he admitted. I've taken for granted that Rebecca's primary focus would be the children in our home. Like you did with me, I observed without accusation. He nodded slowly. I suppose I did. Assumed that was your primary identity because it was convenient for me to see you that way. The honesty flowing between us felt new and fragile, but precious. For perhaps the first time, we were seeing each other as complex individuals, not just the roles we occupied in relation to one another. Can I ask you something, Patricia? Rebecca said hesitantly. Why did you never tell us? About owning the resort, about your business success? Were you afraid we'd treat you differently? I considered her question carefully. Not afraid exactly, but I wanted to be valued for who I am, not what I have. I wanted my relationship with you and the children to be genuine, based on family bonds, not financial influence. But your business success is part of who you are, Daniel pointed out. By hiding it, weren't you also hiding part of yourself? His insight surprised me. That's remarkably perceptive, Daniel. Yes, I suppose I was. After your father died, it became easier to compartmentalize. To be just mom to you and grandma to the children, keeping my professional identity separate. And we made it easy for you, he admitted. We never asked, never showed interest. We just slotted you into the role we needed you to fill. As our conversation continued late into the night, I felt a subtle shift in our family dynamic. A new openness, a willingness to see beyond our established roles and recognize the fuller humanity in each other. It wasn't perfect or complete, but it was a beginning. The next morning, when I emerged from my bedroom, I found Emma and Jackson already dressed and waiting eagerly. Can we see your office now, Grandma? Emma asked, practically bouncing with excitement. After breakfast, I promised, touched by their enthusiasm. Where are your parents? Dad's on a call, Jackson reported, and Mom's getting dressed. She said to tell you she's really looking forward to seeing your office too. Their genuine interest warmed my heart, while the children might not fully grasp the significance of my professional role. They understood intuitively that we were experiencing something important together. After a leisurely breakfast, during which Daniel asked thoughtful questions about the resort's operations, we made our way to the administrative building. As we entered through the staff entrance, I was acutely aware of how employees greeted the deference in their manner, the respect in their eyes. Daniel and Rebecca noticed too, exchanging glances as they witnessed this different aspect of my identity. Mrs. Lambert, good morning, Marina exclaimed as we stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor. I didn't realize you'd be coming in today with your family. An impromptu tour, I explained. Marina, this is my son Daniel, his wife Rebecca, and my grandchildren Emma and Jackson. It's a pleasure to meet you all, Marina said warmly. Mrs. Lambert speaks of you constantly. Daniel looked surprised. She does? Of course, Marina replied. Family is everything to her. She may be running a hospitality empire, but her proudest achievement is right here in this hallway. I felt myself flush slightly at having my sentimentality exposed, but the pleased expressions on my family's faces were worth the momentary embarrassment. "This way," I said, leading them toward my corner office. "This is where I work when I'm at Serenity Shores." The space was elegant but practical. Large windows overlooking both the ocean and the resort grounds. A substantial desk adorned with framed family photos alongside business awards, and shelves displaying architectural models of each Lambert property. Rebecca gravitated immediately toward the models, examining them with genuine appreciation. "These are extraordinary," she murmured. "The attention to detail is remarkable." "Those are Grandma's little hotels?" Jackson asked, standing on tiptoe. "To see." "Resorts," Emma corrected with the air of someone imparting important knowledge. "They're called luxury resorts." Daniel laughed, ruffling her hair. Someone's been paying attention. As they explored my office, I watched their reactions, noting the way they were integrating this new information into their understanding of me. Rebecca studied everything with thoughtful consideration. Daniel examined photographs with a hint of nostalgia, and the children bounced between exhibits with uninhibited curiosity. "I remember this," Daniel said suddenly, picking up a framed photo of himself as a young boy sitting atop construction equipment. "This was at the Sedona property, wasn't it? Dad let me help clear the land." "You insisted on wearing a hard hat for weeks afterward," I recalled, smiling at the memory. "You told everyone you were building hotels with your parents." His face softened. I'd forgotten that. I was so proud to be part of it. "You were always part of it, Daniel," I said, gently. "Even when you didn't realize it." Marina appeared at the door with a tray of refreshments. "I thought you might enjoy some of Chef Miguel's special lemonade while you continue your tour." "Thank you, Marina," I said, noting how Rebecca observed our interaction with new eyes. After Marina departed, Rebecca turned to me. "She's remarkable. So anticipatory of your needs." "We've worked together for 15 years, I explained. "She knows me better than almost anyone." "Better than I do, apparently," Daniel said, but without bitterness, more a rueful acknowledgement. "Differently," I corrected. "She knows me professionally. You know me as your mother. Both are valid perspectives, just incomplete on their own." We continued our tour through the administrative areas of the resort, areas guests never saw. The design studio where my team was developing concepts for the Maui property, the sustainability department monitoring our environmental impact, the employee training center where new staff learned the Lambert approach to hospitality. Throughout, I noticed Daniel and Rebecca absorbing not just the physical spaces, but the way people related to me. With respect, certainly, but also with genuine warmth and ease. This wasn't fear-based deference, it was authentic appreciation. "You've created more than just beautiful resorts," Rebecca observed as we walked through the employee dining hall, where staff from every department ate together regardless of position. "You've built a culture." "That was always the goal," I confirmed. "Luxury isn't just about thread counts and amenities. It's about creating environments where everyone, guests and staff alike, feels valued." "Is that why you didn't want special treatment for us?" Daniel asked. "Because it would undermine that culture of equality?" "Partly," I acknowledged. "But also because I wanted you to experience the resort as it truly is, to appreciate what we've built based on its own merits, not because of your connection to me." By the time we reached the Marine Conservation Center, my last stop on our behind-the-scenes tour, something had shifted in our dynamic. The awkwardness of the previous day had largely dissipated, replaced by a genuine curiosity about this dimension of my life they had never fully seen. Mrs. Lambert, Dr. Kai Nakamura, the center's director, greeted us warmly. "What a pleasure to have you visit with your family." "Kai, this is my son Daniel, his wife Rebecca, and my grandchildren Emma and Jackson. "We're honored to meet Mrs. Lambert's family," he said sincerely. "She speaks of you often." Daniel looked mildly surprised. Again. "She does?" "Of course," Kai replied. "Mrs. Lambert may be our founder and benefactor, but she's a grandmother first. She's always sharing stories about her grandchildren's accomplishments." I felt a flush of embarrassment at having my sentimentality exposed again, but the pleased expressions on my family's faces were worth it. Kai gave us a comprehensive tour of the facility, explaining how we had rescued and rehabilitated over 300 sea turtles in the past decade. The children were entranced by the massive tanks where injured turtles recuperated before being released back into the wild. "This is seriously cool, Grandma," Emma declared, watching a one-flippered turtle named Admiral navigate his tank with determination. "Did you build this whole place?" "I provided the funding and vision," I explained. "But Dr. Nakamura and his team do the real work, the science, the care, the rehabilitation." "It's a partnership," Kai corrected. "Mrs. Lambert doesn't just write checks. She's involved in every aspect of our operation, from research priorities to educational programming." Daniel watched me with newfound appreciation. "You never mentioned any of this, Mom. All these years when we visited the resort, you never even hinted at your connection to it." "I wanted you to experience it as guests, not as the owner's family," I explained, "to see it through unbiased eyes." "But we missed so much," he said regretfully. "All the deeper meaning, the intention behind everything. We experienced the surface without understanding the heart." His words struck a chord within me. Wasn't that exactly what had happened? In our personal relationship as well, they had seen the surface, mother, grandmother, widow, without accessing the heart of who I was. "Perhaps that's changing now," I suggested, in both contexts. Rebecca, who had been listening quietly, suddenly asked, "Does the conservation work extend to the Maui property as well?" "Absolutely," I confirmed. "Each Lambert resort includes environmental and cultural preservation components specific to its location. In Maui, we're focusing on coral reef restoration and traditional Hawaiian agricultural practices." "That should be central to the events program," she said thoughtfully. "Not just as a backdrop for photographs, but as an educational component, a way for guests to connect meaningfully with the place and its ecological significance." Her insight surprised me. That's precisely the approach we're hoping to develop. Events that offer substance as well as style. "Rebecca has a background in event planning," I explained to Kai. "Before the children were born, she organized corporate and charitable functions." "Really?" Kai looked interested. "We've been trying to develop our fundraising events program, but haven't found the right approach. Someone with experience in both corporate and nonprofit sectors would be invaluable." Rebecca's eyes lit up with an enthusiasm I hadn't seen before. "I'd be happy to share some thoughts, if that would be helpful." "Perhaps over lunch," Kai suggested. "We're hosting a donor appreciation event next month, and I could use a fresh perspective." Daniel looked at his wife with surprise, then dawning understanding. "That would be perfect. Rebecca has a real gift for event conceptualization." The pride in his voice was unmistakable, and I realized something important. Just as they had failed to see me completely, Daniel had perhaps never fully seen his wife either. Her professional capabilities, her creative insights, her potential beyond family roles. As we continued our tour, Rebecca and Kai fell into animated conversation about event strategies, donor psychology, and experiential education. Daniel and the children moved ahead to examine a display on turtle migration patterns, leaving me to observe this unexpected connection. "She's very good," Kai said quietly when Rebecca stepped away to rejoin her family. "Natural instinct for engagement design. If she's ever interested in consulting work, we could certainly use her expertise." The seed of an idea began forming in my mind, but before I could pursue it, Emma called out from the far end of the center. "Grandma, come quick. Admiral is doing tricks." The rest of the day unfolded with a new ease. We enjoyed lunch at the beachside restaurant, where Daniel and Rebecca asked thoughtful questions about the business aspects of the resort operation. The afternoon was spent at the pool, where for the first time since our arrival, I felt fully included in the family activities, not as the convenient childcare provider, but as a valued member of the group. That evening, as we prepared for dinner, Daniel knocked on my bedroom door. "Mom, do you have a moment?" I invited him in, noting his unusually serious expression. "I've been doing a lot of thinking today," he began, sitting on the edge of my bed. "About you, about Dad, about the business you built together." "And?" I prompted gently. "I'm ashamed," he admitted. "Not just for how we've treated you on this trip, but for years of taking you for granted, of reducing you to just the roles that served our needs." His candor touched me. "Daniel, it's natural for children to see their parents primarily in relation to themselves. That's not something to be ashamed of." "Maybe when I was 10, he countered. "But I'm 42. I should have made more effort to know you as a complete person, not just as my mother." "And I could have shared more," I acknowledged. "I kept my professional life separate because I wanted our family relationships to be authentic, not influenced by my position or wealth. But in doing so, I denied you the chance to know me fully." He nodded thoughtfully. "I keep thinking about all those business dinners Dad used to host at home. I assumed you were just playing hostess, but now I realize you were an equal partner in those discussions." "More than equal in some cases," I smiled. "Your father liked to joke that I was the brains and he was the charm." "I wish I could tell him I finally see it," Daniel said, his voice thick with emotion. "How perfectly matched you were. How much respect he had for you." "He knew," I assured him, reaching for his hand. "And he would be so proud of the man you've become, Daniel. The father you are to Emma and Jackson." He squeezed my fingers gently. "I want to be better. For them, for Rebecca, and for you, Mom. I want to really see the people I love, not just the roles they play in my life." "That awareness is the first step," I told him, "and the most important one." As he left to finish dressing for dinner, I felt a warmth spreading through me, the gentle healing of a wound I hadn't fully acknowledged until it began to close. That night, we dined at Azura, the signature restaurant I had previously been excluded from. The staff greeted me by name, of course, but now my family understood the deeper significance of that recognition. We were seated at the best table, with its panoramic ocean views and perfect vantage point for the sunset. "This is where you wanted to have dinner that first night," I remarked to Rebecca as our appetizers arrived. She had the grace to look embarrassed. "And we deliberately didn't include you. I'm sorry, Patricia. That was incredibly thoughtless." "It was," I agreed, but without rancor. "But we're here together now, and that's what matters." As we savored the exquisite seafood and watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant hues, our conversation flowed more naturally than it had since our arrival. Daniel shared stories from his medical practice. Rebecca spoke with animation about the event concepts she'd discussed with Kai, and the children recounted their marine biology lessons with unabashed enthusiasm. "You know," Rebecca said thoughtfully as dessert arrived, "I've been thinking about what Kai mentioned regarding their fundraising events." "Oh," I encouraged. "He said they've been struggling to create experiences that are both elegant and educational, that satisfy donors' expectations for luxury while meaningfully connecting them to the conservation mission." She hesitated, then continued with growing confidence. "I think I might have some ideas that could help." "I'm sure you do," I said sincerely. Your background in event planning would be invaluable for something like that. Daniel watched his wife with new awareness. You've missed it, haven't you? The creative challenge of event design? I have, she admitted. Don't misunderstand. I love being a mother, and I've never regretted prioritizing our family. But there's a part of me that's been dormant, I suppose. And today, talking with Kai, I felt it awakening again. Perhaps there's a way to combine both, I suggested carefully. To honor your role as a mother, while also engaging your professional talents again. Rebecca's eyes lit with interest. What are you thinking? We're developing an events division for the Maui property, I explained. Destination weddings, corporate retreats, wellness gatherings. It needs someone with vision and experience to shape the program from the ground up. Her expression shifted from interest to surprise. Are you offering me a job? I'm suggesting a conversation, I clarified. With our development team. Your background could be valuable and it might give you a creative outlet beyond family life. Wouldn't that be nepotism? She asked hesitantly. Only if you weren't qualified, I pointed out. But from what you've described, you have exactly the experience we need. And family businesses often succeed precisely because they leverage the talents of those with a personal stake in the outcome. Daniel seemed momentarily taken aback, then thoughtful. That's actually a brilliant idea. Rebecca's been talking about wanting something of her own again, and this would keep her connected to what she loves while working with family. Rebecca looked genuinely moved. You'd trust me with a part of your company after how I've treated you? I'd trust you. Because of your abilities, I said firmly. The personal relationship is separate. One of my mistakes has been keeping these worlds apart too rigidly. Perhaps it's time to integrate them more organically. As we continued talking late into the night, I felt a genuine shift in our connection. Not just the superficial adjustment to my revealed status, but a deeper recognition of each other as multifaceted individuals. Daniel shared his professional challenges more openly than ever before. Rebecca spoke candidly about her ambitions and frustrations, and I allowed myself to be seen completely without minimizing my accomplishments or authority. The remaining days of our vacation unfolded with a new richness. Breakfasts became animated discussions where Daniel and Rebecca eagerly asked about the resort's operations, my daily work, and the challenges of expanding internationally. Rebecca spent several hours with Kai and his team, developing concepts for their fundraising events. Daniel joined me for a meeting with local officials about a coastal preservation initiative, witnessing firsthand the respect and influence I commanded in the community. Throughout it all, the children absorbed this evolving dynamic with the adaptability of youth. They took pride in introducing me to other guests as our grandma who built this whole place, delighted in the behind-the-scenes access their connection to me provided, and most importantly, observed the growing mutual respect between their parents and grandmother. On our final evening, I arranged a private dinner on the beach, with a table set directly on the sand and lit by torches. The executive chef prepared a magnificent feast of local specialties, and as we dined under the stars, I felt a profound gratitude for the transformation our family had undergone. I'd like to propose a toast, Daniel said, raising his glass. To my mother, a woman I'm only just beginning to truly know. Thank you for your patience, your forgiveness, and for building something remarkable that extends far beyond these beautiful resorts. Rebecca joined in. And to new beginnings, to seeing each other more clearly and valuing each other more completely. To Grandma's cool job, Emma added, raising her sparkling cider with solemn importance. We all laughed, the sound carrying across the moonlit water. After dinner, as the children played at the water's edge under Daniel's watchful eye, Rebecca sat beside me in the sand. I want you to know, she began hesitantly, that I meant what I said earlier. About the Maui project. If you really think I could contribute something valuable, I'd like to try. I know you could, I assured her. Your insights today with Kai were spot on. You have a natural talent for creating meaningful experiences. She smiled, looking out at the ocean. It's strange. For years, I've seen you primarily as competition, for Daniel's attention, for the children's affection. I never imagined you could be a mentor, a collaborator. We limit ourselves and others when we insist on narrow definitions, I observed. You're not just a mother and wife. I'm not just a grandmother. We're complex people with multiple dimensions. That's what Emma said, isn't it? People are whole people all the time, not just parts. Wise beyond her years, I agreed. Like her grandmother, Rebecca said warmly. As we packed to leave the next morning, I found a hand-drawn card slipped under my door. The children had created a picture of all 5 of us standing in front of a building labeled Grandma's Resort. Inside, in Emma's careful handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for not just being our grandma, but also for being you." I tucked the card carefully into my purse, a more valuable souvenir than any luxury item in the resort's boutiques. On the drive to the airport, Daniel asked, "Will you come visit us more often now, Mom? Now that we know about your work, we can arrange things around your schedule." "I'd like that," I replied. "But perhaps we could try something new as well." "What's that?" Rebecca asked. "Perhaps sometimes you could come to me. Visit my world instead of always fitting me into yours." Rebecca nodded thoughtfully. "I'd like to see your other resorts. Maybe we could make it a tradition. Visiting a different Lambert property each year." "Starting with Maui when it opens?" Daniel suggested. "I think that could be arranged," I said, smiling. As our car pulled up to the departures terminal, I watched the resort staff wave goodbye to us, to me with genuine affection. I had created more than a luxury destination here. I had built a legacy. And now, finally, my family could see it too. 6 months after our revealing vacation at Serenity Shores, life had transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined. The artificial boundaries between my family life and my professional identity had dissolved, creating something far more authentic and satisfying than the compartmentalized existence I'd maintained for years. Daniel began calling me regularly, not just about family matters, but to ask my advice on business decisions. He'd recently been promoted to department head at his hospital and found himself navigating leadership challenges for the first time. "Mom," he'd say, "how do you handle it when someone on your team isn't performing?" Or, "What's your approach to difficult conversations with staff?" Each call reinforced that he now saw me as a whole person with valuable experience beyond motherhood. Rebecca's transformation proved even more surprising. After careful consideration and several meetings with my development team, she had accepted a part-time consulting position with the Maui project, focusing on the creation of our events program. Working remotely most days, but traveling with me. To Hawaii once a month, she brought a fresh perspective and natural talent that impressed even our most seasoned executives. "It's like a muscle I'd forgotten I had," she told me during one of our planning sessions. "Dormant, but not atrophied, and using it again feels incredible." The most precious change came in my relationship with Emma and Jackson. No longer just the grandmother who appeared for birthdays and holidays, I became a regular fixture in their lives. They spent weekends at my home, where I taught Emma architectural drawing, and Jackson developed an unexpected passion for the culinary arts after spending time with Edward during a special behind-the-scenes tour of our flagship restaurant. One Sunday evening, as I drove them home after a weekend visit, Jackson asked from the back seat, "Grandma, were you always a resort owner, even when Dad was little?" "I was," I confirmed. "Your grandfather and I bought our first property when your father was just 2 years old. Then why didn't Dad know?" Emma asked, her 10-year-old logic cutting straight to the heart of things. I considered how to answer. "Sometimes, sweetheart, people only see what they expect to see. Your father knew I worked with Grandpa, but as he grew older, he started thinking of me primarily as his mother. That's silly, Jackson declared. You can be lots of things at once. Like how mom is our mom but also works on wedding stuff now. Exactly right, I agreed, marveling at his wisdom. The children's observations sparked a realization that had been forming since our revealing vacation. The damage hadn't been entirely one-sided. In my determination to keep my professional success from overshadowing my role as mother and grandmother, I'd inadvertently contributed to the very compartmentalization that had hurt me. I'd allowed Daniel and Rebecca to maintain their limited perception of me rather than insisting on being seen in my entirety. This understanding prompted me to make two significant decisions. First, I invited my entire family to attend the groundbreaking ceremony for the Maui property, not as guests, but as participants. Daniel and Rebecca stood proudly beside me as I addressed investors and press. The children helped me shovel the ceremonial first dirt, their faces glowing with importance in the photographs that later appeared in hospitality industry publications. Second, I began the process of documenting the history of Lambert Luxury, resorts for a book that would serve as both a business memoir and a family legacy. Each Sunday, I recorded my memories of building the company with Robert, the challenges, the triumphs, the vision that had driven us forward, even when conventional wisdom suggested we'd fail. I want to show you something, I told Daniel during one of his visits to my home office, pulling out a dusty photo album I hadn't opened in years. Together, we paged through images of a much younger version of myself, standing before the dilapidated beachfront motel that had started everything. In one photograph, Daniel himself appeared as a toddler, perched on Robert's shoulders as we surveyed the property. I remember this place, Daniel said, tracing the outline of the weathered building with his finger. I used to collect seashells, while you and Dad talked to contractors. You collected those shells for our first lobby display, I reminded him. We arranged them in a glass case with a small plaque that read, "Curated by Daniel Lambert, age 3. Guests loved it. His eyes widened. I had no idea. You were always part of this business, Daniel, even when you were too young to realize it. The photographs triggered memories he'd long forgotten, accompanying Robert and me on property scouting trips disguised as family vacations, sitting in on meetings with architects where his childish suggestions, "The pool should be shaped like a dragon," were taken seriously and sometimes even implemented, celebrating each new opening with a private family dinner before the official launch. I was there for all of this, he marveled, and somehow I managed to forget. Not forget, I corrected, gently. Just file it away as childhood background noise rather than recognizing it as the foundation of something significant. That evening, as we shared dinner with Rebecca and the children, Daniel raised his glass in an impromptu toast. "To my mother," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "who never stopped building while I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry it took me so long to see you clearly." Rebecca reached over to squeeze my hand. "And to seeing people for who they truly are, not just the roles we assign them." As I looked around the table at the family I'd always loved but who were only now beginning to know me, I felt a sense of completeness I'd been missing for years. The vacation that had begun with such hurt had ultimately given me the greatest luxury of all, the freedom to be my whole self with the people who mattered most. The Maui property opened 18 months later, a breathtaking achievement even by Lambert standards. Nestled between volcanic mountains and a pristine crescent beach, it harmonized so perfectly with its natural surroundings that from certain angles, the structures seemed to disappear into the landscape. Rebecca's event program had exceeded all expectations. Rather than the standard destination weddings and corporate retreats, she had created something genuinely innovative, immersive experiences that incorporated Hawaiian cultural traditions, marine conservation, and sustainable agriculture. Brides weren't just getting married on beautiful beaches, they were learning the significance of lei-making from local artisans and incorporating ancient Hawaiian blessing ceremonies into their vows. Corporate clients weren't just holding meetings in scenic locations. They were participating in reef restoration projects and traditional taro farming as team-building activities. "You've reinvented the concept of luxury events," I told her at the grand opening celebration. "These aren't just beautiful experiences, they're meaningful ones." She smiled, looking more confident than I'd ever seen her. "I learned that from you. True luxury isn't about opulence, it's about connection, to place, to culture, to each other." Daniel, who had taken a leadership role in establishing a medical partnership between his hospital and local Hawaiian health providers, beamed with pride at his wife's achievements. "She's incredible," he said, watching Rebecca expertly guide a group of travel journalists through the property's cultural center. "And to think I spent years seeing only a fraction of who she really is." "Something you inherited from me," I teased gently. "We Lamberts can be slow to recognize the full dimensions of the women in our lives." "At least we eventually get there," he acknowledged with a rueful smile. The opening weekend culminated in a traditional Hawaiian luau on the beach. As honored guests performed ancestral dances beneath the stars, I found myself reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought us to this moment. 8 years earlier, when Robert died, I had faced a choice: to diminish myself to fit others' comfortable perceptions, or to continue building the legacy we had started together. I had chosen the latter while trying to maintain the former, creating an artificial separation between my identities that ultimately served no one well. Now, watching Emma and Jackson being taught traditional Hawaiian dance moves by patient cultural practitioners, seeing Daniel and Rebecca engaged in animated conversation with local business leaders, I realized that integration rather than compartmentalization had been the answer all along. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Emma approached me with uncharacteristic solemnity. "Grandma, I've decided what I want to be when I grow up," she announced. "Oh? And what's that?" I asked, expecting perhaps architect or marine biologist, given her recent interests. "I want to be like you," she said simply. "Someone who builds beautiful places but also remembers what really matters." Touched beyond words, I hugged her close. "That's the loveliest thing anyone has ever said to me." Over her shoulder, I caught Daniel's eye. He nodded slightly, acknowledging the profound gift his daughter had just given me: recognition of the whole person I had always been, the balancing act I had maintained through decades of business building and family nurturing. As our family gathered for a final photograph against the backdrop of the Maui sunset, I felt Robert's presence keenly, not as a painful absence, but as the foundation upon which everything else had been built. He had seen me completely from the beginning, recognizing capabilities in me that I hadn't yet seen in myself. Now, finally, the family we had created together was seeing me with the same clear vision. The photographer counted down. 3, 2, 1. In that suspended moment before the shutter clicked, I looked at the faces surrounding me, Daniel, Rebecca, Emma, Jackson, and saw something I had been seeking for years: recognition. Not just of what I had accomplished or what I could provide, but of who I was in my entirety. Businesswoman, mother, grandmother, visionary, partner, creator. The camera flashed, capturing more than just our images. It captured a family transformed by the simple yet profound act of truly seeing each other. 2 years after the Maui opening, I celebrated my 65th birthday at Serenity Shores, surrounded by family, friends, and colleagues from every phase of my life. The resort staff had transformed the private beach where our revelation had begun into an elegant celebration space, with tables set directly on the sand and lights strung between palm trees. During dinner, Daniel stood to offer a toast. "Some of you have known my mother for decades," he began, addressing the gathered guests. "You've witnessed her professional achievements, her business acumen, her vision for redefining luxury hospitality." He turned to face me. "But I've had the privilege of knowing her in a different context, As the woman who read me bedtime stories even after working 14-hour days, who taught me to swim in the very ocean behind us, who showed me through her example what it means to pursue excellence without sacrificing humanity. His voice grew thick with emotion. For too many years, I failed to recognize the extraordinary scope of who my mother is, seeing only the parts of her that directly related to me. It took a moment of painful clarity for me to understand that in limiting her, I was also limiting myself, missing the opportunity to know one of the most remarkable individuals I'll ever encounter. Rebecca stepped forward to join him, adding her own words. Patricia taught me that we don't have to choose between the various dimensions of ourselves, that mother, professional, partner, friend aren't competing identities, but complementary facets of a complete person. Her example has transformed not just how I see her, but how I see myself and the future I'm creating. Emma and Jackson, now 12 and 9, approached with a large wrapped gift. "We made this for you, Grandma," Emma announced proudly. Inside, the package was a meticulously crafted architectural model, their interpretation of what they called Grandma's Next Resort. It featured sustainable pod-like structures nestled among trees, solar panels disguised as decorative elements, and a central gathering space clearly designed for multi-generational enjoyment. "It's for families like ours," Jackson explained, "where grandparents are cool and have important jobs too." Laughter rippled through the gathering, but I felt the deeper significance of their gift. They weren't just acknowledging my professional identity. They were integrating it into their understanding of family itself, creating physical space for the multi-dimensional relationships we had developed. As the celebration continued late into the evening, I found a moment of quiet at the water's edge. The moon cast a silver path across the ocean, just as it had on that pivotal night when Daniel and Rebecca had begun to see me anew. Thomas, my faithful resort manager, appeared silently beside me. "Happy birthday, Mrs. Lambert," he said softly. "It's a beautiful gathering." "It is," I agreed, though I find myself thinking of Robert tonight. How much he would have enjoyed seeing the family come together like this. Thomas nodded. "He would be proud of what you've built, not just the resorts, but the legacy. The way you've united family and purpose." I smiled, appreciating his perception. It wasn't always united. For years, I kept them carefully separated, thinking that was the only way to maintain authentic relationships. "And now?" he prompted gently. "Now I understand that authenticity comes from integration, not compartmentalization, from being fully myself in every context, not presenting different versions to different audiences." A comfortable silence settled between us as we watched the waves caress the shore. After nearly 30 years of working together, Thomas and I had developed the easy companionship of those who have weathered many storms side by side. "There's something I've been meaning to discuss with you," I said. "Finally, about the future of Lambert Resorts." He turned to me attentively. "I'm listening." "I'm considering a new leadership structure," I explained. "One that acknowledges the contributions of the next generation while maintaining the vision and values we've established. The family business becoming truly familial," he observed with a slight smile. "Exactly. Daniel has shown remarkable insight in our healthcare partnerships. Rebecca has revolutionized our events programming. Even Emma has an intuitive grasp of design principles that can't be taught. A Lambert dynasty," Thomas mused. "Robert would approve." As we walked back toward the celebration, I felt a profound sense of completion, not an ending, but a harmonious convergence of the separate streams I had maintained for so long. My professional achievements, my family relationships, my personal identity had finally merged into a single powerful current carrying us all forward. When I reached the table, Daniel pulled out my chair with the easy respect of someone who sees clearly. "Everything all right, Mom?" he asked, noting my pensive expression. Everything is perfect, I assured him. I was just thinking about journeys, how the most important ones often happen right where we stand, in the space between perception and reality. He nodded, understanding immediately. Between seeing and being seen. Exactly, I agreed, accepting the glass of champagne Rebecca offered. As I looked around at my family, truly seeing them and being truly seen in return, I realized that this was the greatest luxury of all, the freedom to be whole, to be complex, to be fully human with those we love most. Emma raised her sparkling cider glass high. To Grandma Patricia, she proclaimed with childish formality, who taught us that people aren't just one thing, they're everything all at once. To being everything all at once, the gathering echoed, glasses glinting in the moonlight. And in that moment, surrounded by those who finally saw me completely, I knew that I had found something far more valuable than any resort I had ever built. I had found recognition, not for what I owned, but for who I was. The person they had once dismissed as baggage had indeed owned the whole journey. But the true revelation wasn't in the ownership of property. It was in the reclaiming of identity, the insistence on being seen in my entirety, and the courage to stand firmly in the fullness of who I had always been. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these. Up, just click and check them out.